heavy investment in highly targeted professional development, and I suppose that that's why you're here. But in many ways, this is the least effective form of professional development, because it sort of relies on this cascading conversation back to the grassroots, doesn't it? You know, the level of accuracy to be able to pass on the message down the line and to be able to remember what you've heard today. It's highly unlikely that within 3 days, according to Joyce and Showers, that you'll remember anything about what I said, which is kind of a relief to me in some ways. But, you know, that it really is very difficult if it's not embedded in this process of repetition and behavioural enactment. But you'll remember how you felt. And that's why when people come back from PD, they ask about, what do they ask about? The food. The food. Because at a very visceral level, it's about how I felt. Did I feel okay? Oh, you know, there wasn't enough food. Oh, there were sandwiches. You know, we were left standing. There was, you know, sort of, you had to use your knife and fork, but you couldn't put it on your lap. You know, there were not enough tables. And so people go to that level, and it's not because I think people were there for the food. You know, you could get better food, you know, perhaps somewhere else. But it's about the emotion that's around our learning. And that's what we tend to remember, you know, sort of more deeply embedded in our, you know, limbic system, if you like. So that cognitive stuff is often lost. Strong and explicit accountability by principals and teachers for the quality of practice. And that's the big cultural shift. And it's very, very difficult because it's not just about shifting the culture at a particular primary school or a particular high school or secondary school. It's about changing the culture of the profession. You know, I mean, Richard Elmore talks about teachers being a profession without a practice. That explicit body of knowledge that can be tested and replicated. And so we do really need to press into this issue of teacher professionalism and a normative climate in which adults take responsibility for their own, their colleagues and their own students' learning. And I know that this is very theoretical, and if I had more time I'd be giving you lots of anecdotes and stories around how this is complex and challenging work. But its complexity doesn't mean that it can't be done. So at the beginning slide I had now above the opening. Here's the definition. Now means without further delay, immediately, at once. It's about making a difference and changing lives. I just want to read you something about this. I believe that most teachers come into the profession despite negative media opinion, not for the holidays. I actually think that there's something that drives people, most people, the majority of teachers, into the profession at some point in their lives because they want to make a significant difference in important and valuable work. Yeah? Yeah? I think that you're sitting here today because at some point something grabbed you and thought, yeah, look, I could invest myself in this. This is actually meaningful, you know? And it's about touching the future. It's about creating a civil society. It's all of those things. And so we often lose sight of that. So I want to read you a letter. Dear Committee, I am writing in support of an application for the recognition of the Commonwealth of Mr Graham Wigney. My application is based on the experiences of a 10-year-old primary school student. The student was me, and the experiences began 30 years ago at Balwyn Primary School. I had the good fortune to be in Mr Wigney's class in 1968, grade 4, and again in 1969, grade 5. Mr Wigney has been an incredible teacher and role model for many students who have been lucky enough to come across him in their lifetime, including me. In those 2 years, we learned so much without even realising that we were learning. We developed a love of learning, and we learned from one of life's great role models. Role models are very important in these turbulent times, and Mr Wigney's model was that of a quest for excellence, a continual search for answers, which took all of us around the classrooms and playgrounds on one maths quest after another. His constant challenging and encouraging us to seek excellence in a sensitive and not aggressive way. I still remember his sensitive comforting and encouragement after he beat me at chess one time, when I was sure that this time I had finally grabbed the victory. His strength of character and morality, which I believe comes from his strong underpinning of religious values, and his ability to make each one of us feel very special. I'm only one of many pupils who were inspired by Mr Wigney. From my perspective as someone who now occasionally teaches younger people, what particularly impresses me is the way that he managed to capture the interest of virtually everyone, bold, in the class, from the slower students to the gifted. Maths in particular would never have been the same without him. I lost touch with Mr. Wigney after I went to secondary school, but more than 20 years later, I decided to make contact with him. I wanted to share with him my happiness at becoming a partner of a major law firm and to thank him for all that he had done for me in particular, but also for my schoolmates. I wanted to tell him how his love of learning had enriched my life. I am sure my phone call caught him completely by surprise. However, as soon as I said my name and asked if he remembered me, Mr. Wigney recounted a story that proved to me that he did. Typically, he refused to take any credit for academic and career successes which I attempted to attribute to his influence all those years ago. In the last 30 years, as a student in the primary, secondary and tertiary education sectors, and now as a parent of 2 students in the primary education sector, I have never seen a teacher who developed in his pupils such a thirst for learning, such a love of education as Mr. Wigney. Now that is a true story. That person is my father-in-law, and a great role model and mentor of me. And I suppose I wanted to touch on that as I draw my section to a close, and to say that every bit of effort that you give, every bit of emotion and energy and the disappointments and the setbacks and the emotion of it, you are investing in people's lives. And you are hoping that your school community will come with you on this journey of improvement so that children's lives can be touched in profound ways like that. And I wanted to renew that within you, because I believe that it takes great dedication to be a good teacher. It takes courage to be a good leader. And I want to finish with this. Education is a universal human right. And if you can't see that clearly, but it's a picture of a very old person sitting in a school in Kenya. And in 2003, the Kenyan government made a landmark ruling that for the first time primary school education would be free for all. And it saw a surge in enrolments. And here's this man sitting in a primary school, and he's 80, and he's gone to learn to read. Learning is a lifelong quest, and it's continuous for all of us, no matter what stage we're at in our career journey, no matter how young or how old. It does genuinely take a village to raise a child. Thank you.